Massachusetts and in the Boston area can get involved in state-level climate change, particularly around the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative. And so I just wanted to talk a little bit about why PSR is interested in the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative. And as most of you know and are aware of, climate scientists believe that we are nearing a tipping point when it comes to climate change. And if we don't take real action soon, that our best efforts might become ineffectual. And so that's why at this point in time, it's really pressing that, given at the federal level what's occurring when it comes to the dismantling of our climate and air protections, that the current administration, the Trump administration, is doing. It's really pressing that we need strong state-level action now. And so we believe, PSR believes, that the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, or RGGI, provides a good opportunity to continue making gains in Massachusetts, the Mid-Atlantic, and the Northeast to reduce carbon pollution along with other harmful air pollutants. And so that's why tonight we're excited to have you join us to learn more about the RGGI and also ways to get involved in strengthening the program. And so let me now turn it over to Jim. Before I do that, let me just say that Jim is going to run through the slides, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about specific ways that folks can get involved in the advocacy efforts here in Massachusetts and regionally, and then we'll be taking questions at the end of the presentation. We'll be opening up the phone lines for folks if they have any questions. And so let me turn it over to Jim.
Great. Thanks, Kathy. All right, let's get the show started. Cleaning the air, cooling the climate, RGGI's benefits for the states. Physicians for Social Responsibility and our chapters represent thousands of health professionals across the United States. Our mission is to protect human life from the gravest threats to health and survival. RGGI, or RGGI, is the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative. It works to reduce carbon dioxide emissions from the electricity sector, thereby also reducing the crippling health burden of air pollution for people who live and work in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic states. RGGI works by setting a limit on carbon dioxide emissions from power plants that from power plants that participating northeastern states can emit. This provides an incentive for polluters to seek the cheapest ways to reduce these climate warming emissions. And now, for the past 7 years, 9 Northeast and Mid-Atlantic states have been participating in RGGI. Those are Connecticut, Delaware, Maine, Maryland, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, New York, Rhode Island, and Vermont. RGGI is currently undergoing a thorough review and evaluation that will shape its course from 2020 onward. And so now is a really good time to get to know the program, to see how we can help it achieve even greater reductions in greenhouse gases. We're looking to engage health professionals and PSR members to advance improvements in RGGI. Specifically, we want to focus on strengthening the cap, or the limit, that it places on carbon emissions. Our health voice, the voice of us coming from us as health professionals, is critical to achieving a stronger carbon cap, especially where governors are opposed to or still uncertain about whether to accept stronger caps, such as in Maine and Maryland in particular. Each RGGI member state must agree and ratify any changes to the overall emissions caps, and the work of PSR chapters will therefore be important in ensuring that these stronger carbon caps are adopted. Measures taken to reduce carbon dioxide emissions also result in reduced emissions of other harmful pollutants like sulfur dioxide, NOx or nitrogen oxides, mercury, and particulate matter. We know that these pollutants have dangerous effects on the health of those living in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic region. They're responsible for increased incidence of asthma, heart attacks, and premature death. And these burdens fall disproportionately on communities of color and low-income communities. The social costs of these health hazards include increases in hospital visits, missed time from work and school. And all of these burdens, all of these harms can be reduced by establishing a stronger RGGI carbon cap. We see the health consequences of air pollution from electricity generation every day. Millions of people in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic are suffering negative impacts from high rates of asthma and increased respiratory illness, heart attack, and stroke. And all of these are linked to pollutants from burning coal and oil from which electricity is generated. Every year, air pollution prematurely claims the lives of thousands of citizens across the Northeast. And we know that burning fossil fuels is a major contributor, the major contributor to climate change. The climate change caused by carbon emissions is already upon us, and the health consequences of climate change are sobering, to say the least. Global warming is such a serious problem because it affects us on so many levels. Rising temperatures threaten our health through asthma rates and heat stroke, while increased ozone levels created in conditions of increasing heat contribute to respiratory and cardiac disease. Climate change also contributes to sea level rise, displacement, drought, loss of food production, and conflict affecting people around the world. In light of the election, and in light of the gridlock at the federal level in Congress, the focus of climate progress in the United States will, we feel, turn even more to the states in the months and years to come. One way that progress is being achieved here in Massachusetts is through RGGI. A review and reevaluation of the program, as I said at the start, is coming up, and we have a great opportunity now to reduce emissions even further. The sooner we do this, the sooner we reduce carbon pollution, the healthier our neighbors can remain, and the brighter the future for our children, our patients, and their children. So, cap and trade, what is it? Cap and trade is an approach to reducing pollution in our atmosphere. The RGGI folks, incidentally, like to call it, quote, cap and invest, unquote, to highlight the way the funds are used by the states. So, cap and invest. The cap on carbon pollution is a limit that is placed on companies that emit pollution. In the case of RGGI, that means power plants or the utilities that own them. Companies pay penalties if they exceed the cap, and the cap gets stricter, gradually stricter over time. The trade part, or preferably the invest part, is a market for companies to buy and sell allowances or the right to emit 1 ton of emissions that permit them to emit only a certain amount. Purchasing these allowances spurs efficiency, and in doing so, lowers emissions. So RGGI, a nonprofit corporation that is set up by the RGGI regulations, that's called RGGI Incorporated, sets the cap for all the states and also sets the amount of penalties after all the states come to an agreement. RGGI was developed by New England and Mid-Atlantic states to cap and trade carbon dioxide emissions from large power plants. And RGGI has helped these states, this entire region of the country, reduce power plant emissions significantly while generating economic and health benefits throughout this region. By 2014, the reductions in power plant emissions were at 37%. RGGI applies to fossil fuel, including coal, oil, and natural gas power plants of 25 megawatts or greater. That comes out to 70 facilities in total. And RGGI states set a cap or limit on the total amount of carbon dioxide that these power plants can emit each year. And again, as I mentioned before, that cap is designed to be reduced gradually over time. So, how do the power plants comply? The power plants can reduce their carbon dioxide emissions through efficiency measures or by switching fuels or by adopting new technologies. Then, as they meet the emissions reduction requirements, they have the option to sell their excess allowances. Power plants can also purchase additional allowances on the secondary market to cover their emissions if they fail to achieve the required reductions or if they emit more carbon dioxide than their initial allocation of allowances permitted. This additional expense becomes an incentive to cut their emissions in the future. Besides trading emission allowances, RGGI offers other mechanisms to enable compliance with the caps. Emission offsets are one such mechanism. These offsets are emission reductions from sources other than the capped power plant sector. For example, a utility company or power plant company can purchase an offset to build solar power in a non-RGGI state instead of reducing power plant emissions as required inside the RGGI region. The problem with offsets like this is that heavily polluted communities can be ignored. For example, companies may choose to do this, to use these offsets because the cost of cleaning up pollution is high, and it may be cheaper to purchase offsets to lower pollution in other areas. So, the RGGI carbon dioxide auctions. Every cap and trade system faces a decision. The government is issuing all the allowances, but how should the government distribute them? Should it give them away or sell them? That is the significant issue. In this case, RGGI decided at the start to auction the permits once per quarter. They require power generators to pay for the allowances, but they allow the market to set the price of the allowances. Currently, the cost is estimated to be about $3, which is still far below the social cost of carbon. This choice about whether to sell or give away allowances, in the case of RGGI, the decision to sell the allowances at auction created a source of revenue for the states. It also has the advantage of ensuring that every ton of carbon costs the same in the RGGI system. Auctioning allowances rather than distributing them for free generates funds that the states now reinvest in energy programs that can save consumers money. Hence, RGGI's preference for the term cap and invest because of the money that goes back to the states from this program. RGGI states are free to dispense with the auction revenues or to use the auction revenues however they choose. So far, they've all opted for some mix of the following. First, energy efficiency measures. Second, community-based renewable power projects. And third, credit that shows up on customers' bills. A couple of other ways they can be used are assistance to low-income customers to help pay their bills, other greenhouse gas reduction measures, and education and job training programs. However, it's important to note that some of these uses in turn, further reduce carbon emissions, while others may not. For example, providing bill-paying assistance is just a payment right to the utility and does nothing to decrease further energy use or emissions. In any case, this implies that RGGI can have a triple benefit. It directly reduces carbon emissions, it reduces other air pollutants, as we've seen, and thanks to the income and the potential for reinvestment from the allowances, it brings other benefits directly to state residents. RGGI successes. Over its 8-year history, the Greenhouse Gas Initiative has helped participating states reduce carbon pollution emissions by 37%. Through 2014, it produced $4.67 billion in lifetime energy bill savings to 4.6 million participating households and more than 21,000 businesses. More than $1.3 billion in RGGI auction proceeds were invested in programs including energy efficiency, renewable energy, greenhouse gas abatement, and direct bill assistance. A brand new report just out from Apt Associates shows that since 2009, RGGI has significantly reduced air pollution from fossil fuel plants, fossil fuel power plants, improving the health of people living in the Northeast. Residents in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic region are now experiencing significantly lower risk of premature death, heart attack, and respiratory illness. The results of the Apt Associates 2017 analysis of the public health impacts of RGGI show that it resulted in net reductions of 2 major air pollutants, nitrogen oxides, NOx, and sulfur dioxide, shown here, in each year of RGGI's first 2 compliance periods. In 2009, NOx reductions from Maryland plants accounted for about 1/3 of total reductions, with plants in New York and New Jersey also accounting for significant NOx reductions. In 2013 and 14, reductions from plants located in Maryland and Delaware accounted for most of the reductions in total NOx. The largest reductions in NOx emissions due to RGGI also coincide with years with the most significant declines in overall energy generation, 2009, 2013, and 2014. The decreases were at their lowest levels in 2010, 2011, and 2012. So, RGGI caused power markets to change in a number of ways. First, changes in power prices to absorb carbon dioxide costs, which resulted in shifting electricity dispatch from higher to lower carbon sources, and investments in energy efficiency that reduced electricity demand, fossil fuel-based generation, and emissions. Here we see a graph of reduction in sulfur dioxide emissions. And as you can see, because of the contribution from coal-fired power plants, the emission rates from coal-powered plants compared with natural gas plants is much higher. So the reductions in generation by coal-fired plants pretty much dominate these total sulfur dioxide reductions. RGGI had by far the greatest impact on sulfur dioxide emissions in 2009. You can see that here, when emissions fell by more than 76,000 metric tons. The majority of these reductions in 2009 occurred in Maryland, which has the largest capacity among the RGGI states of coal-fired power plants. RGGI induced changes in electricity generation and lowering of emission from 5 of Maryland's coal plants accounted for roughly 62% of the reductions in 2009, and more than half of the cumulative reduction from RGGI's first 2 compliance periods. Here's a look at the effects on the reduction of small particulate matter. not going to go into any detail about this, but some of you are already aware, it's these very small particulates that we're coming to greater understanding cause really some of the most severe respiratory and other health problems. These figures illustrate the location and degree of changes in air quality due to RGGI for the first and second compliance periods. Where you see darker colors, that means greater reductions in fine particulate pollution. Generally, again, the most significant improvement occurred in states adjacent to or downwind of Maryland's coal power plants. Certain counties in New York and New England, including Merrimack County, New Hampshire, and Bristol County here in Massachusetts, that were downwind or had large coal plants, also experienced notable air quality improvements thanks to RGGI. Air quality in non-RGGI states also improved. Air pollution, as we know, it blows across state lines. So changes in emissions from plants located in these states had an impact on air quality in the non-RGGI states. Residents of neighboring states not part of RGGI have seen health benefits as well, thanks to this cleaner air. The APT Associates report from this year showed substantial air quality benefits, especially in Pennsylvania and New Jersey, both non-RGGI states, due to emissions reductions from plants located within the RGGI area. So again, as I mentioned before, it's coming up time for a RGGI program review. States are currently in the process of determining the program's post-2020 future, where things are going to go between 2020 and 2031, and this is crucially important. Through the 2016 program review that's still ongoing, the RGGI states have proposed several possible scenarios that will limit power sector carbon emissions through 2031. And here are the scenarios proposed. First, a business as usual reference case that requires no additional reductions beyond 2020. Second, a cap on carbon pollution that declines by 2.5% annually through those years, 2020 to 2031. Essentially, this would simply be a continuation of the current cap decrease trajectory. The third scenario involves an increase in the decline cap by 3.5% annually. And the fourth scenario, and the one we feel is by far the best, and the one that we are hoping to advocate for, is a cap that declines by 5% annually over the time period, and which is aligned with existing state requirements. Now, the post-2020 cap trajectory that the RGGI states end up choosing is going to have significant impacts on how we generate electricity and, obviously, on the quality of our air and our health in the region through 2031 and beyond. So our goal, as I stated, is to do whatever is necessary to get these RGGI states to agree to reduce the carbon cap by 5% annually. As we've seen, RGGI is a cost-effective way to reduce carbon dioxide emissions from the electric sector and to make the future healthier for all citizens. PSR and its members, along with other public health and environmental advocates, are therefore urging RGGI to adopt an annual reduction in their cap on emissions of at least 5% through 2030. As most of you know, pollution from fossil fuel plants hits marginalized and frontline communities, the most vulnerable communities, the hardest. And those same communities are going to face the most devastation from the climate change that we don't succeed in avoiding. Unfortunately, carbon trading programs like RGGI are not designed to ensure that emissions reductions occur in the disadvantaged communities. Now, some local community-based groups are urging RGGI states to conduct a comprehensive equity analysis that examines the proximity of polluting power plants to low-income communities and communities of color, and that analyzes the total burden these communities face from the cumulative impacts of power plant pollution and other polluting facilities. And finally, that considers power plant pollutants like sulfur dioxide and NOx, which are linked to well-described health problems like asthma, cardiac, and pulmonary disease. The goal is that the results of such an analysis would inform efforts to directly reduce pollution in these overburdened and disadvantaged communities. In addition, advocacy groups are urging that the money made through RGGI, the investable part of RGGI, be heavily reinvested directly in the communities that most face the harmful health effects of our energy generation, and in programs that deliver local benefits for these most disadvantaged families. These could include energy efficiency and weatherization services, transition assistance for workers who will be displaced by retiring fossil fuel plants, community solar projects, and other clean, green energy economy projects. So that's what we need your help with. We need health professionals to join us in speaking out, informing the public on why RGGI is important, on providing people with the basic information that helps people understand why it's so crucial to improved health co-benefits, and advocating as doing whatever we need to do politically to get this 5% cap put in place through 2031. So that's pretty much what I got.
Great, thanks, Jim. That was wonderful. This is Kathy Attar again with PSR. Thank you. So let me what I do now is just give you a quick update on what the RGGI cap proposals are doing. Jim had mentioned that the RGGI board and the RGGI states have proposed several scenarios on the carbon for the carbon caps, and they held the states held a webinar last week, late last week. It was on Friday, and unfortunately, none of the on this webinar they presented their options again when it comes to the different carbon cap scenarios and other mechanisms to strengthen the program. And unfortunately, on the webinar, they presented 3 scenarios, and actually none of the new policy scenarios are actually comparable in ambition to the 5% cap that we've been pushing for. So originally, they had included in their some of their policy carbon cap scenarios, a 5% cap, but on this latest webinar, for some reason, the 5% cap has fallen off. So that kind of means that from an advocate perspective, that we kind of need to push even further and even harder when it comes to realizing a RGGI that is as strong as possible when it comes to reducing carbon and also being as equitable as possible. And so when it comes to opportunities for engagement, there are several things that are happening right now that the Greater Boston PSR chapter members could get involved in. There's going to be a comment letter, a formal comment letter that's being organized by the RGGI Coalition, which is a coalition of states, a coalition of organizations made up of health organizations, environmental organizations, community-based organizations throughout the Northeast. And this RGGI Coalition is putting together formal comments that will speak to the carbon cap policy scenarios. And they're actually, there's going to be several comment periods, but there's a comment period coming up this week actually. And so there's going to be a comment letter going around for sign-on that I believe is going to be released on Tuesday that I will forward to Jim, and then Jim can forward it to you all. And if folks can take a look at the comment letter, and if they feel comfortable signing on to it, that would be great. So that's coming up this week in terms of a comment letter that's going to be asking the RGGI states and the governors specifically to put forward as strong a carbon cap as possible, along with looking at that equity analysis when it comes to disadvantaged communities, looking to get the funds and to reduce the pollution in those overburdened communities. Those are going to be two of the asks on that comment letter. Also this week, the Acadia Center, which is based in Massachusetts, they're releasing a new health analysis that's going to be looking at how RGGI, it's going to be talking a lot about what Jim talked about in this presentation, looking about how there are a lot of co-benefits to RGGI, not only reducing the carbon pollution, but you're also reducing a lot of other harmful air pollutants. And this analysis makes that case. And so that is going to be coming out this week, and they're looking for, I'm going to be looking to see if any PSR Greater Boston members might be interested in writing an LTE or possibly even an op-ed to kind of address both this new Acadia analysis, but also pushing forward cap as well. So be on the lookout for an email from me or Jim trying to see if we can get some LTEs and possibly even signing on to an op-ed looking at that Acadia health analysis. And then kind of going forward, we're also going to be looking to, we're going to be trying to generate quite a few grassroots comments in relationship to the stronger cap on RGGI. So we're also going to be developing some e-alerts going forward in the future as well. So, and we would also love to have the Greater Boston PSR chapter be a participant and participate in that as well. And then finally, along with as part of the push for the carbon cap, as Jim talked about, we're also looking to highlight the equity analysis aspect. We've been working a little bit with the Toxic Action Center in Massachusetts, that's based in Massachusetts, that serves the greater New England area. And they have been kind of leading the push for making the RGGI program more just and equitable. And so we've been talking with them about also possibly partnering with them on some media events. They might have some media events coming up over the next couple of weeks as well. So that could be another opportunity for folks to get involved. And so let me stop there, and if we could open up the phone lines, Julia, for questions, and if folks had questions, feel free to go ahead and just speak up on the phone. Okay, thanks.
Dick, I typed my question in. It has to do with carbon tax and the discussions in Massachusetts about a state carbon tax. How about RGGI?
Okay, oh yeah, let's see.
Oh, and I'm sorry, can you say your name?
I'm sorry, yeah. I'm sorry, yeah, I saw this was from Richard Clapp, Dick Clapp.
Yep.
And so, yeah, Dick is asking about how would a carbon tax affect the RGGI plans? And so, I mean, I think, let me just, I'll just give my initial take. I mean, I think the carbon tax would be, it could go along, right along with the RGGI program. I don't think it would necessarily, I mean, I think it could be a parallel track, in fact. And I think, because from my perspective, RGGI shouldn't be the only kind of avenue or venue for reducing carbon in Massachusetts or throughout New England. It could be part of like a, a plate of options. And so, and I know that's, and I know that has been a discussion not only in Massachusetts but also in New York, and I think also in Connecticut as well. Jim, I don't know if you wanted to add anything.
Sure. Yeah. Well, actually, I guess I would ask. It's more of a question, or just kind of thinking out loud. And Dick, I'd be interested in what you've heard or read about this. Is it possible that the existence of RGGI and the amazing track record of RGGI can be used as a way to further the? I mean, it's a strong. It seems to me it provides, on the face of it, a strong argument in favor of adopting carbon taxes, because I'm far from an expert on this, but my sort of amateur understanding of RGGI's history is that when it was adopted, there was concern expressed from some quarters that it was going to be costly, that it was going to be innovation. Some of these arguments we've heard before. And I think now we've got, going on, 8-9 years of pretty strong evidence to show that if anything, the opposite's true. People end up saving money, and the health benefits are just outstanding. So sorry to go on so long about that, but I guess my question is, so it seems to me, yes, it's consistent with a broader carbon tax, but can it also be part of the conversation or part of the argument for a broader carbon tax?
Well, I haven't heard anything, myself, but I can imagine a state legislator, for example, in Massachusetts saying, well, why do we need to strengthen, or maybe the other way, why do we need a carbon tax if we already have RGGI, that they could be played off against one another in that sense? Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. It's a good point, although really RGGI applies only to the energy production sector. It does nothing just think about, for example, the next time you put gas in your car, it does nothing in that regard. There's so much carbon out there that, I totally agree with you, Dick, that we would get, I wouldn't be at all surprised to get that as a kind of question or an argument, but I think it would be an easy one to prepare, to anticipate and to respond to.
Good.
Sure, and it looks like, Dick, you also had a question about whether or not there's going to be legislative hearings in Massachusetts that address RGGI planning. I hadn't heard any specifics about legislative hearings. I know there's going to be, I believe there is going to be some public hearings and public meetings for folks to comment, but I hadn't heard anything specifically about legislative hearings, but I can look into that to get a more definitive answer.
Does it require state legislative action, or is it done at the governor's level or the Department of?
It's the governor. It's the governor. Essentially the governor. Yeah. Right. It doesn't have doesn't require any legislative action. The governor is kind of has the final say, essentially.
Right.
Gee, I have two quick questions about that. Jim here again. First, Kathy, I think you mentioned this, but just to be, so I'm sure, will we be able to get a hold of a schedule of what the meetings that are going to be open to the public?
Yes, yeah. Those are not, those are going to be, those are probably going to be a little bit later in the year. But yes, they're definitely. As soon as I have more information about kind of the public meetings and the public meeting schedule, I'll let folks know.
Great. I'll just throw in a personal note here too. I think my sense is the opportunity and the effect that health professionals could have at these in-person, forums is significant. And I'll say this. I'm saying this because about it. It's already going on around a year ago when this revision first, when the discussion about these revisions first began. I attended a meeting and I spoke out in favor of a 5% cap. Mm-hmm. And because I didn't know much about RGGI at the time, I kind of don't share this outside of this conversation. It's top secret. But I kind of was, I took a crash course from some of Kathy's colleagues on this. But I went and spoke, and I spoke as if I knew what I was talking about. And there were no other physicians there. There was one nurse, and there was me out of like 110 people there. And almost everybody else was either from a power plant or an investment firm, or a political, wonk or something. So I think it's a tremendous untapped, opportunity. The other thing I wanted to ask about is, I don't know if this is realistic just in terms of rapid response. We may not be capable of this, but just this past week, the Massachusetts governor got a C from, I'm trying to remember what the agency, which organization gave them the C, but if anybody else heard this on NPR, the governor of Massachusetts got a barely passing grade in regard to climate work. Okay. And one of the big things he was faulted on was kind of talking a big game and not doing very much to push ahead carbon reduction, initiative. So I think we've got there's some meat here that we could, use. We've got real. It's an identified problem that we could speak to.
Sure, definitely. I think that's. So, Jim, you said you heard that on NPR. It was on a local NPR station. Okay.
Yeah. I'm going to Google it as we're talking, but I'd love to hear if there are other questions or comments. It's the Climate League of, is this right? Climate League of, Conservation Law Foundation. Okay. Gave the Baker administration a C. Yeah.
I mean, yeah. So what I was also going to do was try and put together some, really brief talking points that folks, if they're interested in, could, turn into an LTE or, and I was going to send that around for folks if that's something, that might be useful, because it especially if there's been some local news around the issue of climate and the Baker administration. I think the newspapers would be even more interested in an LTE. So, so I was going to do that. Great. I was going to send some talking points, and then just to reiterate, I also am going to send around the comment letter that the RGGI Coalition is going to be putting together, and so those are all kind of quick things this week that I will I'll have for folks. But did anyone have any other questions? And the webinar was recorded, so we'll also have that available. We'll send that around as another resource, along with, I won't read through, but there are a couple of other resources for folks who would like to learn a little bit more about RGGI, that I can also put in an email along with the talking points and the comment letter. I'll kind of put together one comprehensive email so I'll send it around early this week.
Kathy, when the Acadia report comes out, can you give us the link to that as well?
Yes. Yep. Definitely. I'll send that. I'll include all of that. The Acadia report, I believe they said is going to be coming out probably Wednesday, and so I'll make sure everyone has access to that as well.
That might be a news hook.
Yeah, definitely. Yes, I think so. Great.
And for what it's worth, I just found the link. I'll copy this to you, Kathy, too, so if you want to, you can include this. The actual report, it was actually a joint effort by Clean Water Action, Charles River Watershed Association, Conservation Law, and the Environmental League that gave the Baker administration a C. Yeah. So we'll include that as well.
Excellent.
Great. Thanks all.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jim, and thank you everyone for getting on, and hopefully we'll be in touch soon.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
All right. Have a good rest of the
all.
Sunday. Bye-bye.
Thank you.